Hello and welcome everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. I'm Allison Walker and I'll be talking today about using some of the Esri local government apps to provide some additional tools to your field crews. But I wanted to center this around a customer story rather than just doing a rundown of what's out there and available, which I'm sure many of you have seen already. As usual, please feel free to use the GoToWebinar panel on your screen there to ask questions as needed, and I will do my best to keep an eye on that during the presentation. But if I miss it, I'll be sure to address any questions that come up at the end of the presentation. And if you have questions after the webinar, I've provided my email there, allison@frontierprecision.com, and you're welcome to reach out to me directly if needed. I do have a very quick survey that will be sent out after the webinar, and we would very much appreciate your feedback if you can take a minute or so to provide that. Just a quick mention of the co-branding that you'll see on my slides here. As many of you know, ElectData was acquired by Frontier Precision in July 2016. So many of you know me from ElectData, and the ElectData GIS team is now part of the Frontier Precision team. So the apps we're talking about today are part of the ArcGIS for Water section of the Local Government Information Model. You can find these and learn more about all of them at solutions.arcgis.com. There are add-ins for ArcMap to make editing data easier, MXDs with pre-configured symbology to make your work a little easier, pre-configured apps available for ArcGIS Online or Portal, and as we'll show here in a minute, some custom tools that allow you to publish custom geoprocessing services on your server. So today, I'm going to talk about a project we've been working on with the city of Twin Falls here in southern Idaho, home to the Snake River Plain and the Perrin Bridge you see there, which, by the way, you can base jump from year-round, no permit required. So the city of Twin Falls has been a long-time customer, and they have a really well-established GIS system that manages a lot of data for the city. You're looking here at a screenshot of their public ArcGIS online page, which is starting to be built up with more maps and GIS information shared with the public, like where to park downtown and when your garbage and recycling is picked up. The city has an enterprise license agreement with Esri and a great, very capable IT department and a GIS coordinator that work well together to keep their ArcGIS server up and running and serving the city well. They collect their water and sewer assets with high accuracy Trimble equipment and software. They have extensive data dictionaries developed for terracing that have evolved over many years, and a really knowledgeable and capable field crew out collecting data. There's really no need to replace this system with Collector or any other cloud software at this time, so that's not really what I'm going to be talking about today. Their equipment is fully functional, understood by the field crews, and well used and very effective. And they manage their work orders in CityWorks. Overall, it's a highly functional system. The city contracted with Frontier Precision to assist with employing some of the maps and apps available with the local government information model to supplement the system already in place. So again, the intention is not to replace what's working well for them, but to use what they already have access to through their Esri entitlements and to add more tools to the tool belt. Because the field crew is already comfortable with using other technologies for their day-to-day work, they've really shown some great enthusiasm for the tools that are being built for them. So let's start by looking at the end product, and then I'll work backwards to show you how we got there. The two big ones that everyone is most excited about are the isolation trace application, which works hand in hand with the outage viewer, both of which are available with the local government information model, but they've been customized slightly in order to meet the city's needs. So at the city of Twin Falls, the field crews have rugged laptops that they use in the field with CityWorks and have full access to the internet from the field. So we jumped on that existing setup and just have them using this on those same devices. So there you see the network trace widget that is included with the isolation trace, so they can flag something on a line here. They can say there, let's say there's a break right here. Again, they're doing this on the laptops that they're already using for other things. So as they run the tool, that runs a geoprocessing service on their server. And then that pops out some information about what's there. So now they can see the valves that need to be shut off in order to isolate this break. They can click on them. They can see some additional information about what's there. And that's a really valuable tool to them. Very simple to use, very straightforward. Additionally, in addition to getting that information, they can use this Save to Layer button in order to save some of this information and communicate that. So if we look at, say, the overview layer here, then they can fill out some information about when this outage started. We'll say this happened today, when it's going to end, what type of outage it is. There's a boil order in there that's a little bit custom. We'll talk about that later. The unplanned outage. Let's use that one for this guy. How many customers are affected by this? Only a couple. What caused it? We'll blame this one on the contractor. Say that was hit by a contractor and we need to replace this pipe section. We'll choose that option there. There are a bunch of other things that you can fill out here. How many gallons were lost, what date this got resolved. Obviously that's not resolved yet, so we wouldn't fill anything in there. And you can also output to other layers those isolated mains and isolating valves. So what happens when they click that Save button is it saves those three things to new layers that are hosted in ArcGIS Online. Now you could have those hosted on your server. We have a little bit of a combo going on here. We have a lot of the processes or the services hosted on their server, and then these ones that are created here are just pushed to layers in ArcGIS Online. It was a little bit easier to manage. So it pushes data up there, and then that allows them to share that information with other people in the department, or if you're a customer, excuse me, you can come out here to the Water Service Outage Details application that now is public facing. That's available on their website, and you can come in and see what's going on with an outage in your area. So if you just click on this, then you get a little pop-up of information. It's not your usual attribute table, right? It's been customized a little bit to pull in some of those attributes that they filled out. So you can see, we expect this to be completed basically by midnight tonight. Thanks so much. And here's a link to the department if you need additional information. So just a really easy thing. Now, the field crew has been able to put in that information and push it straight out onto a website. There's nobody else involved. That's all taken care of. The great thing about these applications from Esri is that they are completely customizable to what you need. The isolation trace uses REST services that you can configure, a pre-built tool that could be customized further if desired, and that's what creates the geoprocessing service that you host on your server. It uses a custom widget that is configured using the developer edition of the web app builder, so your options are really endless there. And that's just an app hosted on your server, so you can further customize the configurable JSON files to change the look of the app or other behaviors if you want. The network trace tool comes with this fairly large and intimidating looking model that requires you to go in and modify a couple of things prior to running the tool and creating the geoprocessing service. But again, this just adds to how customizable this can be. You can use it as is, or you can get really fancy and come in here to this model and just really make it your own. It's huge. You can see that I couldn't even get a screen snap that really even fits on the page. The city of Twin Falls wanted some very simple changes, like they wanted their parcel data in the isolation trace app, so that even though they don't have all the meters mapped yet in the network, they could still see the properties that were affected. So if they have a situation where they have to do door tags, say for a boil order or something like that, this makes it easy for them to see which addresses are in danger and which properties they need to address. They also wanted the outage viewer and the drinking water advisory apps to be combined into one application. So if you head out to that solutions.arcgis.com page and go start looking around at these applications, you'll see that there are separate apps for the outage viewer and the drinking water advisory, but they really didn't want those separated. They didn't want their field crews to have to use two separate applications in order to provide basically what they saw as the same information. So just some minor modifications of the domains to give them the right choices and adding some custom text to the pop-up in the outage viewer map. So the point is there, if you see an app and it doesn't fit your need perfectly, that's okay. Most likely you can still make it work and still be a valuable tool for your field crew. You can see there that in the screenshot, all this really is based on is a web map and a web mapping application, pretty straightforward stuff. The next application that we rolled out at the same time was the Map Change Request app. This one is much simpler to configure, but just as valuable. So yes, we could have just put collector in their hands and allowed them to make updates themselves, but the city preferred to have changes come through the GIS coordinator instead. However, the way this was done previously is that when a field worker found a mistake in the map, they would just make a note or try to email the GIS department, and communicating the location of the mistake was clunky and ineffective. So what we have here is the map change request. So again, we're back at the city's ArcGIS online page, and now that we're logged in, we see a bunch more apps that have been created there. If you come over here to the utility apps, this is a little gallery that we've created just for their field crews. And these services are secure, so that we do need to have a sign in here real quick. Okay, so once you're in there, you can see the water isolation trace, which is what we were showing earlier, and now we also have the map change request application, which will look very familiar. Again, it's just an app, basically just goes to a website, and it has one tool or one widget in there for editing. So again, we want to keep this very simple. They don't need anything complex. They just need to be able to view some things in the field. So they want to be able to look at assets and see all of the attributes about that asset. And if there's a mistake, they can come in here to the edit tool and stick a dot on the map and say, okay, here's a problem here. It's incorrect for this network structure. Type in some notes as needed, and even include an attachment, a photo. So on the laptops, they can take a picture, stick that on there, and just choose the file. If you were on a tablet, you could take it straight from the tablet. And now there's just a dot on the map that indicates to the GIS coordinator where this problem is and what the issue is. So a lot more effective. Now they can just call her up and say, hey, I put something in there. There's a bad attribute in this network structure. Done, easy. She can go in and change it, clear this from the map, and they're off and running. So very simple to set up, very simple to use, but really an incredible time saver and a much more efficient way of dealing with this. So of course the field crews have the most knowledge about what's actually out there in the field, and this allows them to actually take advantage of that knowledge and get that information into the geodatabase. So one of the requirements of both of these applications was the water distribution network map that's included in the foundational solutions of the water delivery ArcGIS online solutions. A similar map is available for sewer and stormwater, and these maps serve as the basis for a lot of applications available. So we needed to stand this up in order to get to the apps we wanted. You don't have to use this exact map in symbology, but it does make working with the other applications quite a bit easier. In order for the isolation trace to be fully functional, the water distribution geometric network needs to be fully connected, and really this should happen prior to publishing the services for the water distribution network, though I will admit we did some of this a little bit backwards and did push up some of these applications first, but their water network now is a hosted REST service on their server. So as we go through and continue to connect additional assets to the network, that just continues to show up in the application and just make it more and more functional as we go. Much of that work requires some pretty monotonous digitization, as I'm sure you can imagine. So between our team, the Twin Falls GIS team, and a couple of interns, we've connected the network to ensure that the isolation trace can pick up the right features. By configuring some rules in the geometric network, it makes the work go a lot quicker. So that brings us to data migration, right? Before we could really worry about the network too much, and before we could publish the water distribution services and maps to feed the isolation trace app, we had to address this question. Do we really need to migrate data into the local government geodatabase? Well, when you look at a lot of the scripting in the applications, you'll see that they pull field names and IDs that are based on the local government geodatabase schema. Now, data migration is no joke. It really is a pretty big task, especially when, like Twin Falls, you've been collecting data for many years. Migrating your data is certainly not required, which is true more and more as the model evolves and is updated by Esri. However, if your data conforms to this model as much as possible, it will make a lot of things easier when standing up these maps and apps. because the city of Twin Falls was looking to migrate their data to a standard schema and do a lot of cleanup anyway, they decided to have us go ahead and migrate the water and sewer data all at once, or at least as much as possible. There were still some exceptions, which we found is really true for all the cities we've worked with, but for the most part, we tried to conform to the Esri schema as much as we could. So, as mentioned previously, the city continues to actively collect assets in the field with their Trimble equipment, and they are using CityWorks, which reads the data in the geodatabase, so we really couldn't just stop all that activity for a couple weeks while we cleaned up and migrated their data. So we decided to use the data interoperability extension for ArcGIS to build a Spatial ETL tool that would allow us to easily change field types, change attribute values as needed, and quickly migrate all the data by just running the tool. So we built the tool, and then we had the city down for only one day instead of a couple of weeks. We had them bring in all their Trimble handhelds, bring all the newly collected data into their existing geodatabase, then we ran the ETL tool, updated their data dictionaries on the handhelds so that the new data coming in would now match the updated schemas, and we went through all the maps that touch these features and updated all the links so that once everyone came back in on Monday morning, they did not see any of their maps broken or behaving differently, and I think this was a real success. I'd highly recommend looking into this extension if you're looking to migrate without having to shut everything down for a longer period of time. One lesson learned on our part was not to forget about the asset management software, and I thought I'd mention it. So we worked so hard to make sure the data dictionaries matched, Python scripts were routed and working correctly, and that the existing maps were not broken. But we did forget about the CityWorks software that pulls all its data from the same geodatabase. So that did require a little work after the fact and some help from CityWorks to remap all the assets so that they showed up correctly. But it was fixed quickly. It wasn't that difficult, and a good lesson learned for us. Additionally, for the city, we've done a bunch of other work, including the watering restrictions app, the leak investigator, the public notification application. We've done a parcel fabric for them and created some parcel update models. We do also want to look at addressing the sewer data. So the field crew, of course, needs access to sewer information in the same way that they need access to the water distribution network. They are in the process of remapping all the sewer manholes, and these will need to be connected to the network and match up those facility IDs with the sewer main IDs. The sewer data was migrated at the same time as the water distribution data. So the city of Twin data is already in the proper format as new data is being collected, so that will make life a little bit easier in the future. Planning is everything, and while we know it's hard to put action on hold and take the time to write a plan, you will never regret planning carefully, especially if you are considering data migration. We've done quite a few work plans or needs assessments now for other cities in which we help to identify what applications you desire, where you're trying to go, what software licensing might be required, what personnel might be required, what state is the data in now, how does that actually look, and how much cleanup is required to do data migration. Is the local government geodatabase really even your best option? And there are some other options out there which you should be open to. What is your best option for migrating data? Do you need to get a new extension, or are you just going to do it manually? What training might be required for your personnel in order to get up to speed? And then we prioritize a list of steps to get where you want to go. So if you're interested in learning more about any of that stuff, I would encourage going out to our website at frontierprecision.com. And let me just bring this over here. So once you come out here to www.frontierprecision.com, you can move over to professional services, where you can see some information about GIS professional services if you have an interest in that. I would also encourage you to take a look at the training and events and the upcoming technology webinars, especially if you are using ArcGIS Online or Collector or anything on smart devices in the field. We have some great stuff coming up. So, for example, mapping on consumer devices, comparing Collector and Teraflex, automating data movement from ArcGIS Online. So again, we're going to look at that data interop extension and see how it can help you manage moving data back and forth from ArcGIS Online. So if you do not have a server and you're hosting your data in ArcGIS Online, how are you managing that? Are you having to pull down data, especially if you're taking pictures? Is it large data sets? That can become a real problem. So automating that piece a little bit. And then maybe achieving some higher accuracy if you are in fact using Collector or Terraflex or something like that. And then I would definitely recommend checking out basically our Esri preview. So this will be presented also at the Esri conference. So if you've had any interest or looked at all at Survey 123 to collect some data and customize some forms, I would definitely recommend checking that out. Okay, so it looks like there are no questions, so thank you very much for joining us today. If you do have questions in the future, please feel free to reach out to me. Again, it's Allison with 1L at frontierprecision.com, or of course, you're always welcome to contact your Frontier Precision sales rep, and they should be able to help you get started as well. Have a wonderful day. Thank you very much.